1. Summary. Popcorn cultural normalization and early exposure. The speaker began watching porn at age 15 using VHS tapes, later escalating due to high-speed internet and free access. It became a normalized and routine part of his life. Confounded face hidden shame and social disconnect. Despite social acceptance, the habit brought shame and secrecy. It also created distance in relationships and replaced emotional intimacy with a quick fix. Broken heart triggering transformation. A major breakup catalyzed a reevaluation. He realized that porn was a crutch masking emotional pain and stress, prompting him to eliminate it from his life. Brain neurological damage and escalation. He cites research showing porn's impact on the brain, deterioration in size and chemical balance, desensitization, and increased craving for novelty, leading to more extreme content. High-voltage 6 surprising benefits. Increased energy, more vitality for goals in daily life. Sharper focus, less need for distraction. Higher confidence, self-control, enhanced self-esteem. Improved business performance, better decisions, more action, better sex. Stronger libido, improved physical response. Healthier views of women, less objectification, more respect, deeper relationships. Repeat button how he quit. He reframed the goal, not quitting porn, but maximizing personal potential. He committed to a 7-day experiment, tracked his thoughts through journaling, and redirected energy into health and business. Counterclockwise arrows button, replacing habits. He emphasizes that quitting a habit creates a void that must be filled with purposeful action. Without this, quitting feels like suffering. Insights based on numbers. Chart decreasing daily usage escalation. From once or twice weekly to several times daily, illustrating how quickly a habit can turn into dependency. Test tube neuroplasticity and reward system hijacking. Describes the brain's chemical shifts and the need for increasingly extreme content to get the same dopamine payoff. Repeat button energy redirection. His reallocation of formerly wasted energy led to concrete productivity boosts, especially in business and personal goals. 2. Being your own life coach. John Muldoon, TEDx Shanghai American School Pushi. Time interval, 00:00:00. 28 minutes and 29 seconds. Summary. Brain, the brain's power and patterns. Muldoon explores how powerful yet automatic our brains are. Our internal dialogue, formed early through experiences and repeated messages, creates patterns that deeply shape our behavior. Oncoming automobile from tapes to self-talk. As a child, his father played motivational cassette tapes during a dark family period. Though skeptical at first, Muldoon later recognized their effect. The brain can be trained through intentional thought, even silly affirmations. Boy anger and isolation. As a teen, he was deeply angry, isolated, and failing school. A transformational teacher used psychological warfare to push him into caring, resulting in a drastic shift in grades, social behavior, and outlook, though short-lived. Puzzle piece, the breakthrough moment. After clashing with a teacher and hitting a low, a memory triggered by a toy car reminded him of his father's tapes. He saw a connection between manipulating thoughts and creating change. Test tube experiments in thinking. Muldoon began mental experiments. First, convincing himself he was cool, then pivoting, after siblings' brutal honesty, to focusing on gratitude. Both experiments yielded personal transformation. Clipboard his 2 personal rules. Give sincere thanks 3 times a day. Gratitude boosts emotional health. Respond with "I'm great" when asked how you are, not to lie, but to reflect and check in emotionally. Brain behavioral science backing. Muldoon references studies showing how imagined practice can mimic real performance gains and how unconscious thought patterns, e.g., anorexic patients walking sideways, shape physical actions. Person in lotus position, the coaching system. Recognize the emotion. Identify its source. Decide what you want to feel. Consciously manage and rewrite the thought pattern. Repeat button becoming your own coach. Muldoon insists being your own coach is constant, conscious work, but transformative. It requires honesty, self-awareness, and repetition to shape a better internal dialogue and, ultimately, a better life. Insights based on numbers. Counterclockwise arrows button self-coaching routine. Muldoon has applied his gratitude practice and self-check system daily, since age 15, a profound commitment that illustrates the power of small, consistent habits. Test 2 Mental Rehearsal Study. Referencing University of Pennsylvania research, he notes that mentally practicing throwing a football offers similar gains as physical practice, proving the real-world effects of internal processes. Brain Historical Patterns Research. The example of 1911 hat-wearing women still ducking through doors shows how deep and persistent unconscious patterns are, emphasizing the importance of deliberate thinking. 3. What a sex worker can teach us about human connection. Nicole Emma, TDX, Salt Lake City. Time interval 00:00:00, 11 minutes and 46 seconds. Summary: speech balloon redefining the profession. Nicole Emma, a sex worker, opens with a heartfelt message from a client expressing deep gratitude. Not for sex, but for emotional comfort, listening, and touch. She stresses that real connection, not sexual acts, is often what clients are seeking. Thinking face beyond stereotypes. Contrary to public perception, most encounters are not primarily sexual, with the average sexual activity lasting just over 5 minutes. The remaining time is often spent in vulnerable conversations, emotional validation, and genuine human intimacy. Brain Why Men Seek It Out. Many men use sex as a proxy for emotional connection and validation. From a young age, boys are conditioned to suppress emotions and equate manhood with strength, money, and sexual conquest, 3 unstable and often unattainable measures. Locked emotional isolation. This social conditioning creates a toxic mass of stoicism. Men rarely feel safe expressing vulnerability, and for many, sex becomes the only outlet to remove this mask and feel seen or emotionally connected. Chart decreasing consequences of suppression. Statistics show the emotional toll. Suicide rates are 4 times higher among men. Without outlets for emotion, men are more prone to internalizing pain, leading to violence, self-harm, or emotional shutdown. Repeat button when needs aren't met. If men cannot afford or are ashamed to seek intimacy through sex work, some may spiral into isolation or aggression. Emma connects this emotional suppression with broader social issues like domestic violence, radicalization, and mass shootings. Counterclockwise arrows button social reformation starts young. Emma argues the crisis begins in childhood and must be addressed in how society teaches boys to handle emotions. Phrases like "man up" and "real men don't cry" must be eliminated and replaced with empathy, permission to feel, and emotional literacy. Red heart healing through intimacy, regardless of the form, whether a pretty woman fantasy or naked therapy. Emma describes her role as helping people feel human, safe, and connected. From disabled clients to grieving fathers, her work touches emotional wounds far deeper than physical desires. Hammer and wrench shifting perspective. She advocates for removing the stigma from sex work, likening it to hiring any other form of help, therapists, tutors, or caregivers. Healing hearts and bodies should not be viewed as taboo. Insights based on numbers. Abacus sexual act duration versus session time. The average sexual act lasts 5.4 minutes, while most clients pay for hours, underscoring that they seek emotional presence, not just physical pleasure. Warning: male suicide epidemic. In 2016, over 45,000 suicides occurred in the U.S., with 80% being male, highlighting the emotional crisis men face. Firecracker violence as an outlet. That same year included 382 mass murders, 17,000 rapes, and 7,500 additional murders, linked in part to emotionally unprocessed male aggression. 4. The secret to getting better sleep tonight. James Lanehart, TDX, Manchester. Time interval 00:00:00, 14 minutes and 24 seconds. Summary: man in lotus position posture versus sleep. Lanehart draws a parallel between daytime posture, often corrected by grandma's nagging, and nighttime posture, something we ignore, even though we spend a third of our lives asleep. Bed the hidden cost of poor sleep posture. When we're awake and uncomfortable, we move. While asleep, we don't, leading to chronic misalignment, especially if we go to bed in a provocative posture, like twisting or sleeping without support. Older adult real-world impacts. He shares a powerful story of a man who went from walking into the hospital to being bedbound for 7 years due to fixed posture. With basic postural support, his body shape and comfort dramatically improved. High voltage, you feel tired even after sleeping. Poor posture in sleep can cause tension headaches, shoulder pain, and exhaustion. Leonhardt emphasizes that even self-described good sleepers might wake up tired due to body misalignment. Sleeping faced Manchester's sleep crisis. In Manchester, over 74% of people get less than 7 hours of sleep, and 50% get under 6. Leonhardt stresses focusing on sleep quality, not just duration, because many external factors can prevent perfect sleep quality. Balance scale quality-quantity. Since life stressors often make 7 to 8 hours unrealistic, he suggests focusing on controllable factors, like posture when falling asleep. It costs nothing and can significantly improve sleep quality and reduce chronic pain. First place medal lessons from athletes and neurological patients. Olympic athletes like Katie Marchant and neurologically impaired patients benefit equally from optimized sleep posture. Even elite cyclists suffer knee pain due to twisted sleeping positions. Not their sport. Light bulb practical advice. Avoid letting both knees touch the bed directly. Use a pillow between them. Avoid twisting one leg over the other. Use soldier or dreamer positions, lying on back or side with proper support. To protect alignment. Pregnant women are taught to sleep on their left side, so healthy people can adopt new sleep habits too. Counterclockwise arrows button break the pain cycle. Chronic pain, bad mood, poor sleep, more pain. Leonhardt offers posture as a simple, effective entry point to break this cycle. Insights based on numbers. Abacus time allocation. You spend the same total time sleeping as eating, and exercising combined approximate 6 years. Woman in lotus position chronic pain prevalence. 1.78 billion people live with chronic pain, and 60% of them also experience depression. Sleep posture can be a missing factor in their care. Mantelpiece clock sleep deprivation statistics in Manchester. 74% sleep under 7 hours, over 50% under 6 hours, reinforcing the urgency of practical, affordable interventions. 5. Why I Stopped Watching Porn. Rand Gabrieli TDX Jaffa. Time interval, 00:00:00, 15 minutes and 24 seconds. Summary. Fire porn-induced anger and violence. Rand Gabrieli begins by revealing that porn distorted his private fantasies, injecting them with anger and violence he never had. He stopped watching because he no longer recognized himself. Puzzle piece film prostitution, not fantasy. He frames porn not as sexual art, but as filmed prostitution, a system fed by distress and exploitation, not desire or mutual consent. The term pornography itself roots from porn, prostitute, and graphia, documentation. Chart decreasing dehumanizing gender roles. Porn often reinforces male domination and portrays women as submissive objects. Gabrieli describes how the genre rarely includes affection, focusing instead on penetration and aggression, with little to no emotional or physical connection. Broken heart, loss of imagination. Porn rewired his brain. What used to be sensual, imaginative fantasies became static, invasive images of subjugation. Eventually, he lost the ability to fantasize freely, even in private, without violent pornographic imagery flooding his mind. Brain-mind nutrition. He stresses that what we consume mentally is as important as food. Just 20 minutes of watching content, even reality shows, can subtly but powerfully shape our desires and behaviors. Mobile phone cultural ubiquity and youth impact. With 90% of 12-year-olds exposed to porn, young minds form twisted ideas about intimacy and sexual worth, centering on anatomy and performance, not connection, affection, or consent. No pedestrians, paralysis, and imitation in boys. Boys either become paralyzed by feelings of inadequacy or mimic the aggressive behavior seen in porn. Many commit sexual violations, even in emotionally involved relationships, due to lack of understanding of real intimacy. Girls and the need to be desired. Mainstream pop culture, often infused with porn aesthetics, pressures girls to conflate love with sexual desirability. Many end up being filmed in intimate moments to please a boy, only to be humiliated, cyberbullied, or worse. Warning: porn social and lethal impact. Gabrieli links porn to sex trafficking, prostitution, and suicide. Most sex workers in porn do not survive the industry due to STDs, drugs, violence, or suicide, especially since society rarely acknowledges their existence. Raised hand watching equals demanding. Even free porn consumption generates demand. Every search click, every category viewed reinforces the market. Watch granny porn? Someone's out there being pimped to fit that fantasy, he warns. Red Heart call for emotionally safe sex. He advocates for passionate, respectful, humorous, mutual sex, emotionally and physically safe. True sexual liberation, he argues, comes not from visual excess, but from dismantling gender hierarchies and embracing humanity. Speaking head break the silence. The final appeal is to talk openly. Silence enables shame and perpetuates harm. Dialogue creates understanding, empathy, and positive change, even if small. Insights based on numbers. Bar chart: 90% of 12-year-olds watch porn regularly, highlighting the urgency of porn literacy and emotional education. DNA life expectancy gap. Most porn participants don't reach age 50, despite national averages of 75 to 76 years, due to drugs, disease, violence, or suicide. Chart: increasing loss of imagination. Gabrielle's personal anecdote illustrates how even moderate weekly consumption of porn can rewire thought patterns and affect mental well-being. 6. Let's talk about sex. The reality of the sexual pleasure disparity. Grace Wetzel, TDXST Lawrence. Time interval: 00:00:00, 14 minutes and 9 seconds. Summary: magnifying glass still to left, framing the problem boldly. Grace Wetzel tackles the persistent sexual pleasure gap between heterosexual men and women, calling out society's discomfort around discussing sex and its consequence. Structural inequality in pleasure. Open book: How We Define Sex Matters. Wetzel highlights that dictionary definitions center sex around penile vaginal penetration, excluding clitoral stimulation. This reinforces the idea that female orgasm is extra, not essential. Chart: decreasing 1 versus 3 orgasm ratio. In heterosexual encounters, women experience 1 orgasm for every 3 male orgasms, according to Lawman's study. Many women feel this gap is even wider based on their lived experiences. Prohibited flawed explanations debunked. Sex is for reproduction? Outdated. Birth control proves otherwise. Women are harder to please? False. Research shows women orgasm as quickly as men during masturbation, and lesbian women have orgasm rates almost equal to straight men. Light bulb is not biology, it's culture. When penises are removed from the equation, women's pleasure increases. Thus, the disparity stems from cultural scripts, gender roles, power imbalances, and inadequate sexual education, not anatomy. Worried face, shame, stigma, and silence. The expectation that women orgasm through penetration leads to shame when they can't. Over 50% of women admit to faking orgasms, reinforcing the male-centric model of pleasure. Counterclockwise arrows button: giving versus receiving. Women statistically give more oral sex than they receive. Asking for pleasure is difficult due to feelings of unworthiness, fear of rejection, or simply not being taught that it's okay to advocate for themselves. Broken heart hookup culture amplifies the gap. In casual sex, women are 56% less likely to orgasm than in relationships. Men in studies acknowledge being inconsiderate of female pleasure, while women internalized and accepted this dynamic. Bar chart: women missing out. Many women have never had an orgasm from a partner. Wetzel emphasizes that this isn't because of their bodies. It's because their pleasure is deprioritized. Raise fist equality, not competition. She doesn't want to diminish male pleasure. She wants to raise female pleasure to equal importance. Sex should be about consent, respect, and shared joy, not hierarchy or obligation. Insights based on numbers. Input numbers: orgasm gap. Women orgasm once for every 3 male orgasms in straight sex. Chart: increasing masturbation parity. Women and men both take 4 minutes to reach orgasm solo, debunking the female orgasm is difficult myth. Kiss woman lesbian parity. Women with women orgasm significantly more often than those with men, exposing flaws in heterosexual norms. Face without mouth faking orgasms. Over 50% of women admit to faking, showing pressure to uphold male-centric definitions of sex. Broken heart hookup disappointment. Women are 56% less likely to orgasm in first-time hookups than in relationships. 7. No sex marriage, masturbation, loneliness, cheating, and shame. Maureen McGrath, TDX Stanley Park. Time interval: 00:00:00, 21 minutes and 17 seconds. Summary: Broken Heart, the silent epidemic of sexless marriages. McGrath begins by humorously but seriously addressing how many marriages become sexless, defined as having sex fewer than 10 times a year. The mismatch in sexual desire between partners often leads to deep relationship dissatisfaction. Chart-decreasing sex life versus relationship satisfaction. In a survey of 10,000 mostly married men, 75% reported relationship satisfaction, but over half were unhappy with their sex lives. Most married couples have sex about 58 times a year initially, then less as years pass. Test tube: the chemical shift. A chemical called PA fuels early passion but fades after about 2 years, coinciding with decreased sexual frequency. Conflict, routine, and lack of communication then take over. Brain sex education failure. McGrath critiques fear-based, guilt-laden sex education for girls and hypersexualized messaging for boys via porn, leading to intimacy dysfunction in adulthood. Pleasure, especially for women, is rarely discussed. Exploding head porn misconceptions and gender gaps. Boys often learn sex from internet porn, which fails to teach real intimacy. Women are taught that interest must precede desire, when it's often the other way around. Desire follows activity. Mobile phone digital disconnection. Smartphones and social media rob couples of intimacy. 10% check phones during sex, 35% right after. Distractions, exhaustion, and overwork all contribute to declining intimacy. Women standing unspoken barriers in gender scripts. Many women feel unattractive, tired, or pressured, reasons often left unspoken. McGrath emphasizes that addressing desire imbalance means understanding both physiological and emotional dynamics. Counterclockwise arrows button sex as a cycle, not an event. McGrath asserts that sexual activity itself stimulates desire, especially for women, and couples should treat it as a health priority, not just a bonus. Disappointed face emotional fallout of sexless marriages. A lack of sex often leads to loneliness, resentment, and cheating. Men often cheat to stay in the marriage. Women often cheat to leave it. Both genders do cheat, just differently. DNA, biological, and psychological factors. Conditions like diabetes, heart disease, stress, and unresolved trauma, including childhood sexual abuse, can cause erectile dysfunction or aversion to sex. McGrath urges a compassionate, informed approach to these barriers. Older adult sex never ends unless you stop. Aging doesn't need to end intimacy. With care, connection, and therapy, people can have satisfying sex lives into their 80s and 90s. It requires openness, communication, and often professional support. Bed practical solutions. Make time for intimacy and prioritize it. Go to bed at the same time. Use sex toys and therapy where needed. Talk about desires honestly and address resentment early. Exercise and improve blood flow. Important for arousal in all genders. Most importantly, bring humor, kindness, and naked conflict resolution into the bedroom. Insights based on numbers. Bar chart: 20% of marriages are sexless, and more than 50% of married men are dissatisfied with their sex lives. 4 o'clock: 10% check smartphones during sex, and 35% immediately after, showing digital distractions' massive role in intimacy decline. Broken heart loneliness has higher health risks than obesity or alcohol, underscoring how critical intimacy is for physical and emotional well-being.